Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Scousers Postmatch show. We called it, didn't we? Well, not really, but almost called it in many ways. And it's probably the best case scenario we can have. Liverpool 4, Chelsea 1 in terms of lineup, minutes, and everything like that. It was, John, we probably could not have asked for any better.
Yeah, only worrying thing was VVD looking a bit shaky in moments. Obviously, we're going to talk about it quite a bit here on the two incidents, but yeah, pretty much faultless performance from controlling the style flow of play from the get-go, pressing Chelsea, making sure they could, the moment they get the ball, they got like four people coming toward them. So yeah, we were talking about the subs that really kind of threw off the pace of the game, but in terms of the starting 11, in terms of just pure pressing the ball, Klopp at his finest right there. So I can't really fault too much players in there. So yeah, I'm absolutely delighted with the result.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, the subs, but I think in some ways that rotation was needed. But it's almost we kind of talked about it before the game, Gally, in the pre-match as well as like the morning show about like the right back, left back. Are these
Yeah.
guys ready to come back? But watching that first half and how compact and how well we are going, it almost feels like that is the ideal starting four for the back right now, even against Arsenal.
Hmm.
It feels that way. I don't expect to see it. I want to be real.
Yeah.
I fully expect Trent and Robertson to start against Arsenal. This is road game. I think it's different when I think the opponent matters because, let's not get into is Saka a good footballer conversation, but I think Saka is a different kettle of fish than the 30-plus-year-old broken Sterling that Joe Gomez had to deal with on the right today. And I think Arsenal's going to feed that. I think Robertson for sure starts against Arsenal. We'll figure out the Trent thing. I'll say this, and it always pains me to say things that make it seem like you are right. But I mentioned it earlier. It's amazing how much better this team looks when a right back stays in the right back position, stays out wide, defends that way. But here's the thing. I think we also saw that McAllister looks a better 6 when his two fullbacks are staying in their positions and playing their roles. Because for me, and maybe we'll get to this, maybe we won't, depending on how long we're on here, I thought McAllister's passing and distribution today was absolutely amazing. And we're starting to see the playmaker that they purchased. Whether he plays deep in the 8, the 10, I don't care where he plays. He is a world-class midfielder. And you can see it now that he's playing with world-class players.
Yeah, I mean, he was actually immense. I thought, like, in terms of like distribution, controlling the pace, kind of like finding those passes in between the lines. I mean, there's a lot of great performances out there that you can kind of choose from, which is nice. And I think more than that, I think Lassalle said it towards the end. Can't remember when it was, around the 70th minute or so, but I think that's what it felt like the entire game, that it was a team playing a group of individuals. Like you could just see the cohesion on one side, whereas everything else was almost like scrambling out of the pockets on the other side. So, but in terms of honestly, like when you guys say that though, I do think, I mean, we'll have time to talk about the Arsenal game, obviously, on like, tomorrow's podcast and Friday morning show and stuff like that. But I felt actually Trent was probably closer, and maybe you wouldn't put the new kid in an away game at Emirates as well as he did today. But I think like Gomez, the way he played Saka, I would probably prefer him. But like I said, we'll get to the Chelsea game. Midfield, we said, John, before the game, that it would be where the game is won.
Yeah.
But it was just not the midfield. It felt like our front three helping the midfields. You could not compare how much their front three helped their midfield.
Yeah, and this is exactly why I always harp on we have to start Jota every game, as even when Mo is out, even when he is here, I feel like he's probably our second best attacker because in terms of how he understands the system, when to press, where to be, this game just kind of encapsulated. And even his build-up play. Like if there was a knock on Jota during his first few Liverpool seasons, it's that he has an absolute trampoline of a first touch. But this year his all-around game has improved so well. Sometimes I was like, am I watching Diogo Jota? Am I watching prime Bobby Firmino here with some of the ways that he gets Nunez or Diaz rolling, which both of them were brilliant as well. Like, but obviously, man of the match probably goes to Bradley, rightfully so. But again, yet another game that shows why Diogo Jota has to be starting every big game when Mo Salah is out, even when he's in. He's just what a player, and he's worked so well on his all-around game. It clearly shows this year. So massive from him and the front three.
Yeah, I think that's a good point because I honestly felt like, Gally, that's one of the biggest things we missed when we did those mass substitutions was more than like just changing Bradley for Trent or Robertson and stuff, but it was the fact that Jota helping defense was really missing, especially on that right-hand side. He worked off the ball a lot today, as did like Diaz and Nunez, really.
I think what we're seeing is that they make a very good front three together. Nobody, let's not get anything twisted. No one is saying this team is better without Mo, but it is nice to see us be able to go out and score 4 goals in a match when Mo isn't playing. Because for all we know, we believe he'll be back in 3-4 weeks. We know, like, the best thing about Mo Salah is he never gets hurt. Tough thing about that is you don't know how long it takes a man to get back from being injured. When he's never injured. I knew Naby Keita couldn't come back from being injured because he's always injured. We won't talk about our man Thiago. Oh, wait, Anand's here. We can.
He's back.
We out.
Anand, you called it, man. Your boy Szoboszlai did get his goal. Beautifully set up for by Bradley again. I thought actually Szoboszlai, for a guy that came back from injury, I'll let you hit his praises because I'm sure itching for it anyway. But I thought, especially for a guy coming back from injury, that midfield trio is probably our best midfield trio right now, and it showed. I mean, the dominance in midfield showed.
Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and say all players in the world have a drop of form, but we can't start to count them out as soon as their form drops and say, you know what, maybe that wasn't the right signing, or say something along the lines of, he's not ready for this team yet, because he showed when we first signed him what kind of player he is, but he had a drop of form. And again, I said it a few weeks ago, he was being used heavily. The guy didn't even get a break in back-to-back 90 minutes. But overall, a good way to come back. Looked really good in his cameo against Norwich. Looks really good today. And I think this is now the team we build on for the end of the season, because we've got a lot of trophies to go for. You've got a fit Szoboszlai. You've got a good... Gally said it perfectly. McAllister, the playmaker that we signed, we finally are starting to see him because his surroundings look good. When your fullbacks are defending, when you've got an informed Jones, when you've got somebody like Szoboszlai coming in, we're starting to have a complete team. We said this a few weeks ago in the show with Gally and the gentleman. They said we still don't know our best midfield yet. We're starting to see it, so let's stick to it. And yes, Jota should be playing every minute, even if it means Nunez sitting out, because he's getting goals. And right now we need guys that are getting goals, despite my unbelievable defense of Nunez.
Speaking of Nunez, Sergi says hopefully Nunez is a designated driver. He hit the bar way too many times tonight. Yeah, I mean, man, the first two, and even the last one, I mean, the penalty, I had a bad feel. I thought he was going to sky that because I thought he was going to just like try to slam it in. I thought it was very well taken in terms of sending the goalie the wrong way, but he hits the post. And yeah, it's just like, how unlucky can you be? Because the second one, especially the one that the goalie saves, both were actually corner kicks eventually, the ones that hit the bar, the first two. But you have to still applaud the contribution in terms of like the work rate and everything. But having said that, I think you could say the same for Diaz today, and he did get his goal, mind you, an assist from Nunez.
Yes.
And I thought he worked really, really well off the ball too. We're going to have some really pleasant headaches, John, with how well Bradley's playing, how well the front three are playing, because you're going to figure somebody's going to have to move to make room for Mo.
And that's the dream. Like when people said at the start of the year, this is probably the deepest squad Klopp has had, if we're counting man for man. Well, they weren't exaggerating, and this is kind of like a sneak peek into how it's going to be. And we don't even have Endo and Mo Salah yet. Like, wow, if you're going to think about it. Diaz, yes, I'm really happy for Diaz because quite a few Friday shows, I have been getting on his ass about him not being able to beat a man, not being able to do the basics that a winger should do. But if he is playing like this, he is the undisputed starting left winger because he does everything that you want from a club left wing, which is basically what Mane did at his prime, which is be unplayable there, beat players one on one. So it's great, and it's great that Klopp is going to be thinking about this. I don't even know how we're going to be looking like, for example, in a big high stakes game 1 month from now in the cup final, and ironically against these guys as well, which is all you could hope for, I guess, in terms of putting out your best 11, but also having adequate or even more than adequate. It's like an embarrassment of riches at this point, right? If you look at that bench, we were talking about it in the pre-match show. Gravenberg, Robertson, Trent Alexander-Arnold, like, wow, that's just like, I'm not gonna say anything, obviously, the risk of jinxing it, but
Yes,
it's a
please don't.
very, it's a very ideal situation. I'll leave it
Of
there.
course, that brings a lot of second guessing as well, there, Gally, because
Right.
whatever 11 we put out there, we're going into a situation where, I mean, maybe except the two center backs, you can kind of debate now who should be starting in terms of like even freaking like maybe except midfield, right? I mean, apart from those two spots, because I agree with Anna, I think this is our ideal starting 11 for midfield. But of course, that was with what you guys both talked about, and Gally, like you agreed with me, like having an extra right back that plays as a right back and a left back that plays a left back. We know that's not going to be the case when Trent gets back, and Trent is going to have the spot back regardless of what Bradley does. So where do we go here? Great problems to have, but which direction do you think we keep going?
I mean, unfortunately, I think we'll go to the position of trying to get the most out of Trent, and I think Klopp has settled with the fact that playing him in an inverted role gives you a better options and protects him defensively, which I think is the absolute opposite. I think it weakens him defensively and then also makes Kanate's job even tougher, which makes sitting Kanate even tougher because that is the one position I don't think we have adequate cover, which is center back. I love Kwanzaa, and I don't even know if Klopp thinks of Gomez anymore as a center back because he's basically he's made him his first choice left back somehow. But we talk about the midfield, and we can all be excited about the depth, and I agree. And I think getting Endo back will be huge because there's those matches and certain types of style where you want to play an Endo style 6 compared to a Maka style 6. But, and I'm sorry, John, put your earmuffs on. I think it's still a big concern that Gravenberch looks lost. Over the
Oh, hey,
last
I've
month,
yeah.
I've been a little bit critical recently of Elliott after singing his praises for the first 2+ months of being a great sub who deserves starting minutes. I almost feel like Elliott seems lost a little bit. He comes in and he wants to make immediate impact because I think he's hearing people mention how he deserves starts because of the impact he makes from the bench. I think it's going to be really telling when they're all fit. And I mean everyone, even Thiago. Who are the three players that don't get a jersey on match? But who are the three players that don't get a jersey on match day? Because there are going to be senior level quality players that aren't able to get a jersey and are sitting in the stands. And that is not an easy thing to balance and play out. And it'll be interesting to see if that's a Bradley one day and Elliott another. I think it might end up being Gravenberch and even an Endo at times. Like, it will be very, very telling and interesting for me to see how that all shakes out when it happens. Don't get me wrong. I will take this rather than last year when we were playing Tyler Morton
For
in the
sure.
Champions League.
For sure.
Yeah, like I say, these are like great problems to have and great conversations to have instead of trying to play people out of position and who fits that spot better and stuff like that. I mean, with Trent and Robo obviously coming back into this lineup, the back four is going to change, which affects the midfield, like we talked about. Bradley, Anand, do we take our time with Bradley and use him in the spots as we are as the backup who shows that he's capable of it? Or is this kid playing at such a high level that it makes us consider John-like thoughts of, using Trent in midfield and stuff, which is a nightmare for me, but
I think it's too soon to give Bradley that nod to be that starting right back that's going to be the future and this and that. Right now, he's filling in his cover for Trent, and let's treat it that way. Let's not get carried away because we had the same issue with Bajcetic. We got so carried away, and then boom, the kid gets
yep.
injured, and now we're like, where's Bajcetic? And the joke is he's with Thiago, which it's probably true. Well, So why put that kid at risk at such a young age? Continue to develop him. Continue to use him in the cup. Use him in the Europa League if needed. Continue to use him in less high pressure matches like against Arsenal this coming up weekend. I would not even consider him an option. If Trent is fit, Trent plays. If Robo is fit, Robo plays. But yes, he's got a future ahead of him. He's gonna do wonderful things, but I wouldn't hurry this kid into too much of a serious high pressure role just yet. And I get it, he's done wonderful, but it's been low pressure. As we get closer to the end of the season, it's high pressure. And now there's documentary cameras on. The kid doesn't want to get burnt out too quick.
But
All roads lead to midfield. That's all I can
yes,
say.
Well, speaking
speaking
of
of
which,
midfield,
do you guys think Elliot has fallen out of favor?
He came on today and
Yeah, but he went from being
yeah,
our
but
most used player last season and early this season to we're
well,
not really talking much about him.
last season was kind of understandable because we were
Emergency.
yeah. So
I could
I
have
think
played last season.
this might be the best role for Elliott. I feel right now it's still used and utilized. I don't think we ever had him like where he was starting the most or anything like that, but he would show up every game, whereas you would have some people who would never come in. And obviously, Klopp has changed his ways a lot compared to the past 3, 4 seasons. Maybe because there's depth, or maybe that's why we're kind of getting the quality depth because these guys are actually getting playing time. But one guy that we didn't talk about in midfield, and that's why I think here's another thing. We talked about this midfield. There are players that it feels like you cannot take out unless you are doing it for rotation and stuff. One guy that we didn't talk about yet is Curtis Jones, John, who even Anand has now acknowledged officially that
I always have.
but I mean, it feels like it's becoming very difficult to make a case for like your boy. Obviously, your boy Gravenberg has kind of like become a hard case anyway. But any
yeah.
other players, including Elliott and stuff like that, it's very difficult to make a case for them starting over unless there is rotation needed, tired legs and stuff.
Yeah, with Jones, it's like with this regarding the Sobo and Jones conversation, they're both excellent at completely different things, I feel. Like I feel like Sobo is more dynamic while Curtis is more is or granted Curtis can be a creative player, but how he developed the steadiness in his game, the keep the ball ticking, make the right passes kind of deal that, made like a Wijnaldum used to do is pretty much what we're looking for on that side of the midfield. So it basically makes him undroppable, just like Wijnaldum was. Can you
Yes.
guys recall a game where Wijnaldum was available that we played that Klopp willingly put him on the bench unless he was injured or
Only only that 4-0 Barcelona match, and I don't know. He came in and did
and
something good in it.
right and he brought him in and look what happened, right? So
He kind
like
of proved he had a mistake.
right.
I'm not saying
Right, I'm not saying Curtis is gonna reach that prime Wijnaldum level because obviously people are gonna get on my ass if he doesn't. But he's getting there. He's getting there. It's you could see the similarities of how secure he is with the ball. Like think of it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when Curtis gets the ball, y'all are just like, oh crap, right? Like what's gonna happen here? Like it's a coin flip, 50-50. Now I'll stop. I can see Anon. Yeah, yeah. He's
And
telling
on
me to
You're
stop.
right. You're
Curtis.
absolutely right. You're 100% right. But here's my problem with Curtis, especially today. When he gets the ball, he does absolutely fine. When his teammates get the ball, he goes to grab it from them and go, like, run with it. He did it to Jota twice, and the second time, Jota was not happy. He started throwing his arms around and screaming because
Oh, I
they
didn't
were
see
both
that. Yeah,
Oh,
they
the
were
one where he
both
was
on
about to volley it.
they were
I didn't see
both at
that.
the they were and Jota gets the ball and controls it, and Jones just runs and takes the ball away from him, and Jota just throws a tantrum, and I'm like, what is going
But
on?
but Jones was also bearing down on a shot on goal, and Jota tried to volley a ball on the half turn because he's
That wasn't the
Jota and
one.
believes he can score any goal. When Bobby used to take the ball off another player on Liverpool's foot, they loved it. It all comes up. Those types of ticks and tricks work when they or come off when they work, and we think they're
Yeah,
quick.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm with you, Anand. But this is my thing on Jones, and I think it's the biggest key. The maturity that he had over the last year to year and a half
Yeah.
is very rarely
Unbelievable.
seen of a player at
Unbelievable.
this type of a club, where they come in with some fanfare and then they fall off as a young age and they rebound and then make themselves like I remember when he got the big run of matches last like January to February. And Kazi was, to be fair, as most local Scousers would, very excited for the local Scouser in the team and probably was over the top on how good he was playing. And I was overly critical. And I remember saying, it doesn't matter what he does. He's playing because of a need. He'll never be a first choice midfielder at this club. And I couldn't have been more wrong because he is the first choice right now because he does everything consistently and the manager can rely on him. And I think that's what Harvey Elliott needs to strive for, showing he can have a role that can be relied on every week, even when he's not at his best. And I don't think he's done
100%.
that yet.
And I think that's what we're kind of seeing out of. I mean, we made this analogy before. Like Gravenberg reminds me of the old Curtis, where when he gets the ball, you're like, "Ugh, is he gonna dive into two guys, lose the ball, cause a counter, or what is he gonna do?" One thing that I really like seeing today, and including from like Nunez and stuff too, and even Diaz at times, because sometimes he gets like kind of panicky when he gets the ball, like he doesn't know what he's gonna do, but just it makes it actually in some ways good because it's hard to defend them as well because the other guy doesn't know what he's gonna do. But one thing I like seeing is there was a lot more control in our game, whether it's Nunez, Diaz, obviously Curtis brings that. Everybody in midfield was content with playing the safe ball if the adventure was not there or the opportunity was not there to play the ball behind. Even your guy, Anan Sabaslai, who is probably out of like all those midfielders most attack minded and adventurous, it can kind of was a lot more controlled, used the right back, used Nunez and stuff like that to kind of control his creativity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I agree. Like Jones had a major development and change and a new level of maturity that we don't see very often in players, especially at his age in such a big club. So I am taking absolutely nothing away from it, but it's just those little things that happen that you're like, what are you doing? And that happens with every single player, not just Jones. But today, because I was laser focused on Jones, I was like, aha, he did it again. That was the only reason I noticed it.
By
Just
the way, on Instagram, Roy says unlucky Nunez, and I think so. I mean, part of it is
Nunez
unlucky.
has a bigger jinx. Nunez has bigger juju than my jinx juju, man. This is ridiculous at this point. That's all I'm saying.
The only
It
the
is
only
kind of,
person
it's almost comical. Like we're laughing at this point
Yeah.
when it hits the post.
the
Go ahead,
only
Gal.
the only person less lucky than Nunez was Anan and his parlay today because he would have hit it
Yeah.
had Nunez scored that goal.
Of course, it's Nunez who costs him, man. It's just so poetic. It's like Hollywood. It's cinema, man. Like
if you think about it, there's a reason why FanDuel was giving a bonus if Nunez scores. That's all I can say. That's all I can say.
That was just to
Jones is
entice
not
people
playing
to
for
bet.
the team and not for his own hype, says Cersei. He's matured as a player now. And I kind of like, I really, really think, and I see the potential that with an off season and stuff, Gravenberg is going to have hopefully the same maturity process as
let,
we
let me ask you something, guys. I'm just curious to hear what your takes here. Like, obviously, Anon brought it up. Anon, I'm pretty sure your dream midfield is still Endo, Maka, and Sobo, right? And with the two as an eight, with the two playing the eights and Endo at the six. The passes that McAllister has been making the last few games. Obviously, everyone's like, "Oh, he looks so good on the sixth role." Do you guys think he'd have the time and space to make those passes if he was an eight? Like, if you look at Curtis's position now, he's so up high the field. You don't get the time to make those incisive passes that McAllister makes, and I think that's actually because of where he's positioned right now. So maybe he actually might be better in that six role, considering where he is on the pitch, his vision. Obviously, he's not as athletic as Jones. Jones is faster, stronger, can dribble a bit more. But yeah, I mean, y'all know where I'm going with this because Maka is so deep, he can make those passes. But if we put him as an eight, he won't be as deep, so we'd lose that passing range, if that makes sense. It's kind of been bothering me over the last few
I
days. Like,
understand that in terms
yeah,
of, like basically when you get the ball, you're usually facing the goal in a scenario
exactly.
more than anything
And
else.
he's like in the center circle. He could see everything that's going in front of him. Whereas if he's an eight, he usually gets it. His back is to the goal, and usually
But
with a
I think
defender
he's
bearing
such
down
a
on.
good player. I don't think that's as much of an impact. I know what you mean. It's always easier. There's a reason why I play D. It's always easier to play when you're facing the whole pitch because you can see the bigger picture. So it's always easier than receiving the ball, with your back to the goal. But I really think he's good enough and so technical and has such great vision. Like today, that pass that he sent, I think it was Curtis, where he was off. That, I mean, he's already seen that. Like, when the ball is coming, he didn't look and pass. He knows that opening is there, and he's already passing that. So I think he can do that as an eight. I go back to what Gally's saying. This is kind of an odd show where Gally and I are agreeing on stuff and like patting each other on the back. But I really think, probably because he kind of like reinforced my point, but I think it helped that he has that space where Trent is not sitting on his knee in midfield, and he had more width to distribute the ball to because there was a right back, because there was a left back. That, a lot of times, and Chelsea is in shambles. Their press was horrific. How many times did they try to press? And then we did like one triangle and the press was gone. And not even like multiple passes, one triangle and the press was gone. But to be able to do that, Gally, you do need width sometimes. I felt like we did get that today. And by the
It's
way,
got to. I
this
was
is
just
a
going to
weird
get that
day
thing
where
on screen. I mean, if we're talking about crazy shows and like the alternate universe of reality, I do. I love you, my friend. You know that, and I love your opinions, whether we agree or not. But I do agree with you. Jones was mighty good today, and I'm usually right. No, I'm just kidding, buddy. No, I do agree with you there, Tamuchin. I think that it has a lot to do with the space. We've talked about this. I've always felt and wanted to see McAllister, and what I believe when they bought McAllister, they bought him to be Henderson's replacement for the midfield on the right-hand side. I'd love to see him in that role someday, because then they got Soboslai and he moved over there, and he's great at it. McAllister has proven for both Argentina and Brighton, he can play anywhere across the midfield you put him in, as long as he understands his role and he has players around him to support him. When he plays for Argentina, he plays in more of like an attacking 8, but he's got a true like destroyer of a 6 behind him. And I think that's really important, because I do still think there is still this question of what's the long term for the 6, what's the long term for the formation. Because let's not go into the Klopp out thing, but Klopp is out at the end of the year, and there's a very good chance the new manager won't be just hung on a 4-3-3 every minute of every day. And in a 4-2-3-1, you might find a whole new jig of roles for this Swiss Army knife of talent that we have. Yeah. But we won't know that till we get there. But to me, we need to revel in this victory today, because as bad as Chelsea were, if we focus on Chelsea being bad, we won't give these guys credit for being good. Because to me, that looked like a team who got the motivation it needed Friday afternoon to go out there and win the whole goddamn thing. Kanate said, I owe this man to play for him for my life for the next 4 months. And it looked like that permeated through every single guy who got a uniform and everyone at Anfield. And I think we're in for a pretty special few months. It's going to end with what will feel like a funeral, but I always wanted to have a funeral. I always wanted my funeral to be a party. So I hope that's the way Jurgen's is, honestly. A big-ass title-winning party.
Man, that leaves the door open to so many things, but I'm not going to jump on.
Tag.
But no, I hear you. That's gonna be. I mean, that would be like what a great way to end everything. That would be. But as we wrap up over here, I'm sure the boys will talk a lot about this game tomorrow night as well. So join them tomorrow at 7:00 Central, 8:00 Eastern on the podcast. And I'm assuming the fantasy boys are right afterwards, Gally, tomorrow night.
You got it.
Yes, right afterwards with your fantasy tips from the gurus. And if you're watching us right now on Facebook, Instagram, wherever it might be, don't forget to hop onto YouTube as well and subscribe there, as all our content is definitely all on YouTube. But as we head out over here, Anan, what is your takeaway from this game? Do you take the same thing, that this team seems extra motivated, or should we not get too excited because we are playing Chelsea and they did look in shambles?
Yeah, but Chelsea hasn't been. They didn't show up to a game where they looked as bad and as under pressure as they were today. Listen, I'm not saying they're good, but the pressure we put them under, it could have cracked any team that we were facing. So we got to give the boys credit. They had a great game. They took Chelsea out of their game. And most importantly, they got not one, not two, not three, but 4 goals in what could end up being a season that is determined by goal difference. Because City is playing well, they're scoring. We got to play well, we got to score. So there's 2 things here. This team is motivated, and 2, this team is going to do it all for Jurgen. So I'm here for the show. I am here for the sad funeral that's going to be happy at the end of the season. And listen, let's fucking go. Let's fucking go. We've got a few months to go, so let's as we say in the furniture business, we got to go balls deep in this. So let's go.
I did not realize that was a
All right.
furniture.
I do not
saying.
want that mattress. I do not want that mattress.
That is not what we do to the mattresses. Sofas only.
We'll leave the address for us because you might want to disinfect any furniture you get from a non-store before you put it to use over here.
Oh.
Well, that should have been the way to end the show. But John, what do you make of this? Like I say, I mean, how do you take this victory as a whole today? Because it was pretty damn decisive. And like I said, I personally I love that first half because it was such a hunting packs, constantly winning the ball back. It was like heavy metal football again, which I was like in awe.
Yeah, we're still pretty much prime mentality monsters, I would say, in terms of how we do things. Like I said when we started the show, prime gegenpressing there on display. Like if you want to implement a gegenpressing style, ladies and gents, just watch that Liverpool 4-1 victory, and then tell your boys to watch it. See the positioning of the players. If you're a midfielder, look where Curtis Jones was everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's all. I had to bring it up, just for the drama, for the cameras.
Who was everywhere?
Much like
my mic was off.
Curtis Jones.
Okay, Curtis.
Yeah.
You heard that or not? I know your mic is off, but I just want to make sure as long as you can hear. You don't need to talk.
That's the bus fly. I thought I heard the bus.
Right. When your balls get that deep, you can't hear.
Dude, even that sofa.
Yeah. How about you there, Gally? This furniture thing really scared me.
I shared my thing on the match and the game, so I'll just jump off that. But someone made a comment about it. I have to just give credit where credit's due. One of my big takeaways from today's match was that either Paul Tierney truly owes Klopp and wanted to say thank you in his first match after hearing he was leaving and he's going to miss him, or what we saw today is one of the small things that make Paul Tierney one of the decent officials in the EPL. And I know everyone loves to hate him, but he does make his own calls on the pitch, whether you like him or not. And today he was good when it came to fouls on both sides. I thought he was excellent at applying advantage and calling play back. Yeah. I thought he was decisive on the penalties, and we didn't have time to talk about the 2 shaky penalties. I thought giving the yellow for simulation and not waiting for VAR to tell him to come look and then doing it. Like, these are things I want from officials. I want them to make decisions on the pitch and stick with them. And I honestly believe that VAR looked at those on Virgil and was like, the ref is in a good spot. He's having a great match. There is no reason to slow this down. This was perfect use of VAR, in my opinion, and it was great officiating. And I'm saying this over and over because I probably will not say this about an English official for another year to 2 years. So we might as well get it in today, but he deserves some credit. Part of why that match was fun to watch, and I think fun to be a part of, was I thought it was well officiated because they play a role in all of our enjoyment of the football match. And I thought he did a good job. So I'll give Paul Tierney a little check for kudos today, but he's still Paul fucking Tierney.
I still don't think that was Paul Tierney, and I don't know where he has been kidnapped to, but yeah,
we'll see how it is. We'll see how it is next season when they have to announce their decisions to the whole stadium. That's gonna be fun.
We didn't talk about that this morning.
You guys talk about that in the show tomorrow because, dude, we're gonna go NFL style in this bitch. That's gonna be so much fun.
Yeah, as Mark says, I mean, yeah, man, as I watch these last few games, I am kind of believing in this more and more and more because I just see that energy in the team that was not always there. I almost feel like the team has started to believe in itself and its depth and whoever shows up over there. Go ahead, Galen.
Real quick, I'll tell you this right now. If Pochettino, who is a person who is well respected for how he runs a squad, runs a club, and manages players on a pitch and his tactics, if he had any inclination that Jurgen Klopp was going to step down at the end of the season, he never in a million years would have taken that Chelsea job because he would have liked his name to be one of the ones in the frame for this job. And I mean, he was, in line for Real Madrid at one point, so his name would have come up had he been available. We're never hiring a Chelsea manager who's failing. But there's no way he walks into that shit show. If he knew there was a shot, he'd be in the booth for one more year. Because to me, he can't win there. It doesn't matter what he does. It's such a big project. They're never going to let a manager see through it. They literally need they need a miracle to turn that around in less than like 6 transfer windows. And that miracle is probably coming with a shit ton of sanctions. And I want you to know, I am all here for it.
Before it gets better, it'll probably get worse, to be honest with you. Or it might, I mean, the best Chelsea did was when they had the ban and they had to use their young players. So maybe they should go back to that. But they do look in shambles. I honestly, starting the season, I had higher hopes just because of him for Chelsea and the quality they had on the squad. But, you know, seeing this, it's shambles. Let's hope it continues. But I'm sure the boys will talk tomorrow night. Like I say, tune in, 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern. Thanks to all those commenting. As always, there should be a bunch of buttons down there. You should be able to smash them, as Bickler would say, like, subscribe, and all that kind of good stuff. And we will see you guys. Do not forget to subscribe on YouTube as well, so you get notified the moment the boys go on air. So thanks a lot, as always. Up the Reds. That was nice, easy watching. And I got to go downstairs and give the snacks to the dogs. They didn't get it for the second half, so they'll be happy about this as well. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.
Take care.